Scott Kelby, thanks for joining us, my friend.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure. This is awesome.
Now, you've been talking today about stuff they didn't tell you. You've been telling them stuff that people haven't been telling them. Will you tell me what you've been telling them that they hadn't been told before?
Well, it was an hour, and I showed, in this talk, it wasn't really like I mean, we're not showing photos, but in the talk, I had 134 slides. We covered a lot of stuff. But I'll give you kind of an example of the kind of stuff we talked about. Like, we talked about noise, because this is one of the things that photographers, I think, overthink a lot. Like, because the people that all care about noise are really just other photographers. So what we talked about was not just about that noise exists and that nobody really cares about it but photographers, but it's, unless you're making actual physical print, like a large print, I don't mean an 8 by 10, I mean a large print, that if you're applying noise reduction in any way, in a plugin or in Lightroom or Camera Raw or whatever, you're a sucker. Here's why. Because think about this, we spend all this money to buy a really nice body, and we buy really nice lenses, and we use tripods to make our shots sharp, and we do all these things, right, to make our images look really sharp and crisp and nice. And then what does a noise reduction do? Noise reduction softens, blurs your image to hide the noise. So we spend this tremendous amount of money and sweat and all this stuff to create sharp images, and we sweep in at the last minute to apply noise reduction that blurs your image. It's like the dumbest thing in the world. And but the real thing is, and I ask the audience to be truthful with it, and everybody's nodding their heads when I say it, how big are our images going to be seen? Really, in real life, what are the vast majority of our images going to be seen? This big. If you're lucky, maybe this big. But what we do when we evaluate noise is we zoom into 100%, a size that no one will ever see our images. So think about the native camera, 24 megapixels. How big would the photograph be? Native size, this big by this big, right? Huge, giant images, 59 inches wide, 60 inches long. We zoom in at 100%. Yeah, there's noise. And we apply noise reduction. At this size, when you're looking at your computer, you see nothing. You see zero noise, but then you're going to blur it. Stuff like that. A lot of stuff, an hour of stuff like that. But with examples, and
Now, I mean, you've been writing about photography for 19 years, I think you said. On that noise thing, since we've been going into the DSLR range, there's kind of been an arms race. Until a few years ago, in terms of megapixel count, it was like, yeah, we've got 15, 20 megapixel, 24 38 megapixel. Exactly. In a way, that arms race seems to have slowed down. And as we've moved maybe away from DSLR cameras as being at the cutting edge, and we're moving towards mirrorless cameras being at the cutting edge, the arms race has moved. This is where I come back to your noise argument. It seems to be the low light sensitivity, the ISO range, that is the new kind of arms race in a way, which kind of goes with what you were saying about noise reduction. Again, how much should we be caring about megapixel count, about low light sensitivity in the cameras that we're buying? Are we taking bad advice there? Should we be looking at other things instead? Kind of tying it back to the fact we're at a photography show and a lot of people are looking at buying cameras to help them get the images that you're then helping them to do things with.
Right. I'm going to so agree with you on where the race has changed. All right, so first, more megapixels does not make better pictures. More megapixels makes bigger pictures. And if you're not making very, 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 very large prints, like some of the giant prints you see on giant banners in here in the hall. I mean, they're giant, they're 10 feet by 10 feet. Yeah, then a really high megapixel camera helps you. Otherwise, it generally hurts you. You're filling up cards all day long, your hard drives are filling up, Photoshop goes really slow with big files and all that works against you. I took a 30 megapixel camera on vacation with me once. I'll never do it again. It's like the big megapixel unless you need it. I opened up a Pano, it was 1.2 gig. Photoshop is crawling, it took like 6 minutes for the Pano, like, oh, why am I doing this? The noise thing, though, is real. If I were going to invest in a camera, that's what I would really be looking for, is that low light performance. Because that's where if you care about noise, if noise is important to you, that's when what you're going to invest in is not a plug-in to blur it. You're going to invest in a camera that natively takes a low noise picture. And all the camera manufacturers, all the big names today, make cameras that have very, very low noise. I think that's where the action's at.
No, good stuff. One final tip, really. Like I say, we are student day here today at the photography show. For any students who are in your session or maybe walking around the show floor who are looking at making that step, maybe they're graduating with BA in photography or whatever, and making the step from being students with a qualification photographer, someone who can actually earn money from this thing, earn a living from it, heaven forbid, what would you say to them as their takeaway from today?
If you want to make a living as a photographer today, you have to have your own look. Whether it's done in camera, whether it's done in lighting, whether it's done in post photography, if you want to work, if they want to make a living when they're out of school, they're going to have something that looks different than everybody else, because today, everybody can take a good picture. You can take a good picture on your cell phone, you can take a good picture with your camera. I have a 10-year-old daughter. If I opened up a Canon Rebel, handed it to her, said, honey, go outside and take some pictures, she'd come back with a bunch of properly exposed pictures on a nice camera. So because everybody can take a picture, what's happening in the photography industry is you go, oh, well, I don't need to hire a wedding photographer, my friend's got a good camera. If you have a repeatable style and a look that's yours, they look at it and they go, oh, I want my stuff to look like that. Like, you know, and I talked about this actually in my class today, I showed examples, and when you saw the examples, you'd be like, oh yeah, because since everybody can take a good picture, why would anybody hire you? They hire you because you have your own look, it's repeatable, it looks the same every single, look at Peter Hurley. You know Peter Hurley? Your viewers know Peter Hurley. He's the headshot master. Every picture he takes looks the same. They all look awesome. If you hire Peter Hurley, your headshot's gonna look just like that, and that's why people pay him the big money, because they want a headshot that looks the same as everybody else's, just with them in it. That's the magic. You gotta have a repeatable look you can do consistently every single time.
Top advice, Scott. Develop your individuality, develop your look. Yeah, I take that.
That's it.
Listen, Scott, thank you so much for sharing your pearls of wisdom here today. Look forward to seeing you again, maybe next year, who knows?
Cheers, I hope so.